I am a huge collector of old video games, and my favorite genre is the platformer. So I am the Game Collector, and this is Second Opinion Games. And today I show you 3 hard to find and difficult to finish games for the Game Boy.
Second Opinion Games.
The first game I want to talk about is Kid Dracula for the Game Boy. Supposedly it came out in all regions, which is also kind of weird because it ends up being super expensive. And this game was made by Konami. People knew that meant a quality title. So how come it's so pricey? I have no idea. But one thing I do know is that this game is hard. Now, Kid Dracula actually refers to Alucard, as in the son of Dracula, and Death seems to stay by his side as a little henchman. Now he forgot all of his spells, and as you progress through each level, you'll earn different attacks. Now you might start off with the Bat transformation from the very beginning, and a charge attack, which is really powerful, but soon enough you'll be unlocking a different move that you can do shooting bats out, which ends up being really confusing because that's called like attack in the special box when hitting the select button down below, and transforming into a bat, it's just called bat. So you might get kind of confused why you do that. There's also a homing shot, but it's really weak, so I can't recommend using that at all, except for one boss kind of late in the game. Now, even though this was a Game Boy game and a platformer, and the Game Boy really couldn't process things that great, you would think that they would tone down the learning curve quite a bit. But no, it does start off kind of easy, but gets excruciatingly difficult really quick. Meaning that this game is probably never going to be finished, even though it is a classic, and I certainly enjoy picking it up again and again. Now, one of the things I love the most about this game is the boss battles. The very first one is kind of creative. You have these hooded KKK members, and they're trying to kill you. Now, yeah, there's thoughts that these might be ghosts, but you know what? I don't think it's really that. There's a young one, then a medium one, and then an old one that eventually collapses and dies of old age right there in front of you. I guess he wasn't that far from death after all. And then there's another stage where you get to fight the main character of Splatterhouse. Yeah, I'm not sure if this is actually supposed to be that guy, but it's obvious that it's that guy. He even has a freaking shotgun, and he is darn tough in his own right. It will probably take him more than a few tries to down this boss. And it's going to take you lots of tries to beat this game. Vanishing Racer is a little known and little talked about game that stayed in Japan, which is kind of weird because it takes place in America, driving from San Francisco to New York City. Now, if you want to be punished in your game difficulty levels, well, this one is for you. Now, there's only 5 levels in this entire game, with 3 stages per level. Sometimes there's pretty much a give me stage in there where you just fly along, and these levels are really easy. But most of them are platforming at their finest. Level stinkin' 1 is where the difficulty skyrockets and just stays high from there. And even some levels getting harder as the game goes on. Now, you only have like 3 lives, so if you die in part 2 of stage 1, well, then you have to go back all the way to the beginning. So you're gonna have to master getting extra lives if you want to make it through this level. And how do you get those extra lives? By jumping on cars to kill them. And you have to do 4 in a row to get a 1-up. Now, it might be pretty easy early on in the game, but it quickly becomes darn right difficult, if not impossible, as the game progresses. Meaning your skills are going to have to improve greatly if you want to see the end of this game. Luckily, there's infinite continues, so if you really enjoy punishing yourself, you will be able to go through all the levels of this game. At some points in time, I think this is more of like a Kaizo game, because it seems the obstacles are shoved in your path, particularly just to crush you and tear your spirits down. So it's like intentionally one of the most difficult games I've ever played. Now, the art style is similar to Tri-Rush Deppy on the Sega Saturn, and I wouldn't be surprised if they were heavily influenced by this game, as it has a similar concept, racing across the United States with a car with neat little animations and lots of personality. So this game seems to have a pretty decent legacy. Another thing I want to point out is even though you might be in a specific city, it never really feels like you're there. Other than the final stage, New York City, we can see all the skyscrapers in the background. For example, Detroit looks really nice and just a good place to live. And Denver and Las Vegas, all the same. San Francisco is just a busy freeway and doesn't have that much personality other than the bomber trying to take you out from the sky. And I can't say that I've ever had that happen when in San Francisco, or any parking at all for anything. So all these cars driving around, I don't know where they go at night. It's just really confusing to me. Overall, this game is a lot of fun, but it's going to be super expensive to track down because it seems to be one that is high on everyone's must-have list. Probably because I put it in one of my own Hidden Gems videos. That sure didn't help the price stay down at all. So if you get a chance to get a reproduction card, or even the real thing, pick it up, but just know that it's one of the hardest games ever made. Hammerin Harry is a IRIM classic, and he has quite a few games under his belt, including one for the Game Boy. Now, I hear a lot of people say that it was never released here in the United States, and I don't actually have any evidence to back up the fact that it was, which is probably why it's so stinking hard to find. Basically, you have to get a European copy if you're even going to play this game, or a high-quality reproduction, which is usually the cheaper way out, especially when playing Game Boy games, or emulation, which I simply hate doing personally. And if you do manage to get this one, it's going to be a pretty fun time. It's not one-hit kills like Vanishing Racer. You do have a life bar, and you're given extra hit points rather often, so you don't have to worry about dying outright unless you fall into a pit. And there will be plenty of pits. Also, you have a hammer that can be upgraded to a bigger hammer or even a spiky ball, and learning how to manipulate how well you move around this spiky ball or hammer really depends on how long you make it through this game, especially because the very first boss, you have to learn how to hold the hammer up over your head to guard against stuff falling on you and killing you dead. You could also get a helmet, which acts as an extra hit point, and every single time you get hit, your hammer or weapon downgrades. So not getting hit is also important for living. It's important for holding on to your weapon and doing the maximum amount of damage. The first two levels might feel pretty easy, but don't pat yourself on the back too soon, because the level of difficulty ramps up really hard, really fast. However, sometimes there are these shooter levels that are mixed in there just to give you a little bit of a break and help to break up the monotony. Also, you're going to notice that the graphics in this game are some of the best that the Game Boy ever had. The music isn't too bad either, and the sound effects are pretty good. However, some of the voice sampling, I can't actually make out what the heck they're saying whatsoever. So there's that. However, it does have its own charm in its own sense, and I never really got tired of hearing it. The bosses are also pretty incredible in their own right. I like this giant ghost boss, but the one that really made me mad is this one that shoots bombs at you. It goes crazy with the bombs, and you only have a couple of hits until you're dead, so you have to be spot on, and he takes like 7 hits to eventually die. To kill him, you have to land a bomb on top of him, and then the timer has to go off and actually explode while it's still on top of this thing that keeps moving up and down. Sometimes it leaves the bombs on a platform above it, and you basically have to knock another bomb into it because you didn't do a good enough job. And this boss will probably be as far as you ever get. But if you happen to beat him, you will be rewarded with an even more difficult level. This time, a platforming stage that is so devious, I just can never, ever make it past it. This game is really hard, even though it also has infinite continues, just like the other games on this list. But you're probably still going to want to come back to it for punishment again and again, because it is a really good game, even if it is a really difficult. Overall, all these games, between Kid Dracula, Vanishing Racers, and Hammerin Harry, they're all very expensive and extremely hard to beat. However, they're also some of the best games on the original Game Boy. But that's just my opinion. Thanks for watching. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this review. I had a great time making it. I love the Game Boy, and I think it has plenty of hidden gems. But I want to know what underrated games there were for this console. I was thinking about doing a top 10 on this, and I really want feedback from you guys. So I want to know what the fan favorites are out there, and what games do you think went a little too much under the radar. And when I get enough suggestions, I'll be doing that video really darn soon. So until later, I will see you again, guys.